There was talk of him joining Paris Saint-Germain in the summer. I think that talk will still be out there now.
Antonio Conte came out and said he's asked to leave the club.
Well, that was fast. I know it wasn't out of nowhere per se, as there were murmurs in the summer, but nobody expected a mid-season transfer of this magnitude, a player of Kvaratskelia's reputation, leaving the team that is currently in first in Serie A to join PSG, according to Fab.
Some small things to clarify, and then we will have the here we go.
And all of this just a few months after Napoli supporters went through the circus that was Victor Osimhen's strange exit from the club. Maybe it's the fact that Khvicha Kvaratskhelia is still on his original contract from when he signed in 2022, meaning he's ranked 19th amongst the highest paid Napoli players. Or maybe there's another reason. But we'll go through it all with the help once again from my man Dom from Napoli Talk, great friend of the channel, great knowledge of Napoli. Shall we get to just how things collapsed between Napoli and Kvara? How will they fare without him? And first and foremost, how did we get to this point?
Still, Khvicha Kvaratskhelia!
Dom joined us just months ago to speak positively about things at Napoli, with how well they are doing under Conte. So where we left off, Conte had told those who he wanted to stay that they would stay, and in case they didn't want to stay and he wanted them there, Conte would get them to clean boots or work in the kitchen, do whatever. It was his club and they'd do things his way.
And everything was quiet. Everything was quiet. There was no big drama in the background. There were a few things from the agent, but the thinking was that things would just naturally happen over the summer. And maybe in June, you either have a new contract or you part ways.
So essentially, Napoli wouldn't have thought that Kvara would have handed in a transfer request mid-season when the club is currently at the top of Serie A. I'm not sure many people expected Napoli to be in this position in Serie A, considering where they came from in the season prior, the disaster season, the massive season-long hangover, really, from winning the Scudetto with Spalletti. I mean, with Conte, a guy who basically guarantees silverware, except at Tottenham, right? But come on. Right? But with Conte, there's always at least a strong chance that you'll win something. And so with the players that arrived in the summer, plus the guys that Conte was able to convince to stay, such as Kvara, that's led to a fantastic campaign where they have been fighting Atalanta for the top spot, overtaking them after their victory over Fiorentina in early January. But that match had a bit of a warning sign.
All of a sudden, Kvara doesn't get named in the team sheet last week with an injury. And we all know what that means when someone gets an injury in the months of January or late August. It means that you're on the market. It means that someone's out there that's serious about getting you, and the club doesn't want to risk you getting injured. And Conte confirmed as much leading up to the Napoli-Verona game on the weekend, saying that Kvara handed in a transfer request. And that was a huge shock because I mean, we're first in the table, and Kvara's maybe not performing at his best, as I said, but he's an integral part of the team. So it's very strange for a player to leave a club that's first in the league while you're a starter.
Now, Conte himself has mentioned that he is disappointed in how things have gone. Not that he's mad at the club, nor is he even upset with Kvara. As a former player, I'm sure he knows that Kvara has to do what he believes is best for him. Conte's more just disappointed that he wasn't able to convince Kvara to stay, that he wasn't able to convince him that Napoli was the best place for him, that they can achieve something fantastic once again with the club, build his legacy further in the city, improve him as a player. Similarly, that he couldn't convince the club to make coming to an agreement of the highest priority for them.
He said in the summer, if I say someone doesn't go, he doesn't go. And so I think that hurt his ego, that Kvara, after 6 months, said, you know what, I'm not listening to that. Here's my official transfer request.
Well, he hasn't been the outrageously good Kvara of his first season. Again, we don't judge any Napoli players for last season, really. But he has still been quite good. Beyond just the goal and assist numbers, of which he has 5 goals and 3 assists this season, he carries that reputation of being dangerous. He demands the attention of the opposition. But
I feel like his performances have not been at the level of 2 years ago. Maybe it's because of these contract negotiations happening in the background. Maybe he's not able to perform with a clear mind. And at times on the field, he's been a little bit emotional and nervous, maybe reacting to little things like someone fouls him, the referee doesn't give a foul, and he reacts. He's very just jumpy at the moment. He's trying a bit too much to get that amazing goal and top bins. And sometimes we don't need him to do that. Sometimes we just need him to put in a cross, even if it's not the sexiest thing in the world.
Speaking of sexy things, that's a great way of describing just how not only good Napoli was under Spalletti, but how they played. And a large part of that was down to Khvicha Kvaratskhelia. With Antonio Conte, you get results, but you also get a very different approach to the game, which made me wonder, did Conte's tactics have anything to do with this? That's not to say that attackers don't thrive under Conte. Look at Lukaku, look at how Neres has been playing lately. But it's not the free-flowing, free-scoring attack of the Spalletti days. And I wonder how much of that has played on Kvara's decision.
It's no surprise that Conte is extremely defensive-minded. Napoli have 12 clean sheets in the league right now out of 20 games. That tells you all you need to know about Conte's priority. And that means that if you're a winger, the number one priority is to track back, is to defend. And Kvara sometimes, he receives the ball before the halfway line and he's got 50 meters, 50 yards to run.
Not every player will so easily adapt to any single style of play. I know this is a random example. But I remember when Niko Kovac was sacked by Bayern, and Thomas Muller would later speak about how it just didn't feel like Bayern finally getting the ball way too close to their own box and then having to go all the way down the pitch. How things changed so greatly with Hansi Flick in charge, right? But of course, there is no single reason for Kvara and Napoli to have come to this. It's always an accumulation of things, and when it comes to Kvaratskhelia, the same could be said. See, as I mentioned in the intro, Kvara is still on the same salary from when he signed with Napoli in 2022, when they signed him from Dinamo Batumi in Georgia. Now, that means that Kvaratskhelia is on 2 million euros, with the average salary in Serie A being 1.7 million euros. Despite his stature, his reputation, his ability, and his importance to Napoli, Kvara is ranked as the 170th highest paid player in Serie A, according to Capology, who has the verified salaries of most Serie A players. That's unbelievable. He's 19th out of the Napoli players. He's behind Mario Rui, for goodness sake. And so when you think of that, you can understand why Kvara would be a bit upset, why his father and agent were talking about him dreaming of playing for a big club, giving attention to the PSG rumors in the summer, right? So it begs the question, this seems to happen often with Napoli's biggest talents. Why wasn't he locked down with a better rate right after that 2022-23 campaign where Napoli won the Scudetto and Kvara was central to that? Why did they wait so long for it to get to this point?
Yeah, look, I think it's a little bit the curse of Napoli, which is that I think it's a club that is too high up in the table compared to what the owner is willing to spend on contracts. So these players have been outperforming the average salary in the team relative to the others. What does that mean? That means that we're always seen by others as this good club that's performing well but is not able to keep their best players. But in reality, we shouldn't even maybe be in a position where we have such world-class players if you consider how little we're paying them in salary, right? These players have been outperforming what we've been giving them. It's a good situation to be in the moment that your players are outperforming, but then at some point the time comes where they will ask the owner for a raise to match the position in the league. They won the Scudetto 2 years ago. They want a raise. And the owner, either he doesn't do it or he does it too late. He wants to strong arm these players. He wants to teach them a lesson. He wants to teach agents a lesson. And he has this way of going about things where maybe it's a bit short-sighted, or maybe he thinks that he needs to set an example for the entire footballing community. And sometimes as a fan, you're just like, no, man, just do what the player wants. I mean, we're talking about an amazing player, and sometimes maybe it's worth sacrificing a little bit your budget to keep him.
And so when De Laurentiis is finally ready to concede, when he's finally willing to pay up, sometimes his tactics backfire with their biggest, most sought-after talents. And they have already decided that they will seek pastures anew. Whereas instead, like I said earlier, perhaps he should have just addressed this after that first season. Even if he had doubled Kvara's salary in 2023, he would be making about the same as Giacomo Raspadori or Alex Meret, right? Surely he's deserving of that. And he would have been happy with that, I'm sure.
PSG are prepared to pay per 4 or per 5 what he's earning in Napoli today.
So you can understand in some ways why Kvara is looking to leave. He seems a bit fed up with the entire situation. Now, we don't know how negotiations went behind the scenes. Kvara's camp could have told Napoli no to everything unless they were willing to match what is rumored to be a massive 4x or 5x the salary that he is currently making. That's apparently the PSG offer. And then when you add in the fact that, and granted, this is speculation here, so sound the speculation alarm, guys, but add in the fact that he may not vibe with Conte's tactics, it just adds further reason for, in his mind, Kvara to leave Napoli. But how does the average Napoli supporter feel about this? Do they understand his frustration, or do they feel like he is screwing over the team that built his reputation by leaving in January?
I think if Kvara had left this summer or next summer, no one would have said anything bad about Kvara. There would have been no hard feelings. I think the overwhelming sentiment with Neapolitans right now is that he's deserted us in the middle of a project, in the middle of a season, and there was no need to do that because PSG is going to be there this summer anyways. And we have a real chance of winning the Scudetto. We're top of the league, but it's a tight race. And we fear that Kvara leaving might spell the end of our title run. And so we're, I guess, preemptively putting the blame on him, even though, I mean, we could very well go on and win it, right? And look, he's got every right to go to another ship, but there's a time and place. And the time and place is in the summer. It's not in the winter when your team is, well, still halfway to go, but you know what I mean? They're so close to doing another Scudetto run or winning a Scudetto.
David Neres still going. Oh, that is a wonderful solo goal.
So according to Mr. Here We Go, Kvara all but out the door at the time of recording this. That of course begs the question of, does Conte have a backup? Who will be the successor to Kvara's position on the pitch, or are they screwed? Napoli have seen the rise of one of their summer signings of late, David Neres. Maybe you saw his goal against Fiorentina that went viral. God, what a player when he's on song. For as much as he would frustrate me at times at Benfica, when he's on song, when he's in form, he's such a treat to watch. But anyway, this great play lately had some supporters even debating amongst themselves, is Neres perhaps worthy of starting ahead of Kvara given their respective forms? And that last bit is important because ask any of them and they would take an informed Kvara versus Neres based on what he has done for the club, right? But given he's on his way out, how are things looking with the Brazilian attacker out there?
Neres and Kvara are different players because one is left-footed and one is right-footed. So that does change the way the team plays. So it's not a like-for-like replacement. But the team has not actually been impacted by it. In fact, Neres has been maybe performing better than Kvara this season. And the team, as a result, has looked better with Neres on the field. So has Conte found the solution? Maybe it's a coincidence, right? Maybe the sample size is too small. But if Kvara leaves and we're just left with Neres on the left, then that is a problem for Napoli because we don't have anybody else that could be a backup to him. On the right, we have Politano, not a huge fan favorite, to be honest. As a backup to Politano on the right, we have Ngonge, who is a good player, a bit rough around the edges, but we would have 3 left-footed wingers.
No, of course, we aren't doing any anti-left foot discrimination here. This isn't a right foot supremacy YouTube channel. But you could say goodbye to someone cutting inside from the left to crack the ball with their right foot on goal. Say goodbye to in-swinging crosses from your left winger now. It's not an auto loss in the Scudetto race. Not at all, of course. That'd be ridiculous. But it's one less tool in Conte's belt. It's another unfortunate thing to happen with Napoli, isn't it? After the unfortunate way in which Osimhen has left the club, now Kvara is leaving in less than optimal circumstances. For how much he has done for the club and how much the club has lifted him and how the fans have adored him, it's a bit of a shame.
But I think when we look back at Kvara's time at Napoli in 4 or 5 years' time, when the pain and the disappointment has settled, we'll look back at having had an incredible player. Maybe only Maradona was able to have such a strong impact because, I mean, before Kvara, we hadn't won a Scudetto in 33 years, even with guys like Osimhen on the team, Cavani, Mertens, Insigne, but we won it on Kvara's first year. That's the thing that moved the needle. That's the legacy he'll have long term, but in the short term, a lot of disappointment.
Guys, thanks as always for watching this video, and another huge thank you to Dom, a great friend in the YouTube space and a great content creator for Napoli supporters. Check him out, yeah? But that's all I ask of you. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in a couple of days. Bye!